Welcome to another episode of the Agronomy Highlights podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Spellman, and I'm joined here with my lovely co-host and colleague, Justin Brackenridge. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Ryan. How about yourself?
Justin, I'm living the dream.
Good. Glad
And
to hear it.
and it's a beautiful day out, and we're in the swing of things here. There's a lot of action happening in the fields, and we have a little bit of a different topic today. We're kind of going to do a Q&A with a couple of CCAs, that certified crop advisors, because as we kind of get into this busy season, it might be kind of on the top of a lot of farmers' mind. You know, do I need an extra set of eyes, a crop consultant that I want to work with? To help me make some of those hard decisions as we get into the meat of the season. So, Justin, I know you have your CCA, so maybe you can introduce to you at least what a CCA is and what value you think it brings to farmers and why we should talk about it today.
Yeah. So as you know, Ryan, and a lot of the listeners know that I started with a forage background and a livestock background. And so part of my training and the requirements and the things to acclimate me to working in grains and small grains and soybeans and things was working through my certified crop advisor, right? It's going to expose you to diseases and planting and fertilizers and herbicides and all of the things that are really involved in this, but also that environmental component. And so it just was a good acclimation for me. I went through the process and I thought, hey, you know what's another credential, right? Let's hang on to this. Let's continue to take the continuing ed and let's keep it. The way I see this, and I'm hoping that our guests, Dean and Lou, will be able to shed some more light on this, but I think is the perspective of a farmer when I'm looking at this. I could go out and I could have someone come in and scout for me, and that person could be anyone, right? It could be Ryan Spellman, or you could look at Justin Brackenridge, Crop Scout. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, but one of the things about the CCA, the Certified Crop Advisor, is Justin has to maintain continuing educational credits, right? I have to have these CCEs every year. And that means that I'm going through more training, I'm getting more education, I'm staying up on new technologies. I think that's the big thing, right? Is you've got this one more credential, this one more training, this one more test that just you've got some more reason to stay up on new technologies.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, part of being a CCA is this continual dedication to learning. You're kind of forced to because you need to maintain that license. And I think in our roles, it's often, like you mentioned, told to us that this is a good way to maybe fill in some of the agronomic gaps that we might come in with, having difference in backgrounds, and then continue to learn after that. So it's something that I've been considering getting the CCA. I keep kicking the can down the road, and hopefully this August I'll actually sit for the test. So it'll be great to hear from some folks that really use their CCAs on a daily basis, and we'll move on and talk to them about exactly that. So all right, so joining us today to talk about their experience as a CCA, as well as we'll share some information about how you can pursue this career path, or how, if you're a farmer, you can use the CCAs around you. We have Dean Collamer and Lou Frame. And so I will let them introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do. So here, we'll start with Dean.
Thanks very much, Ryan. I was a field sales agronomist with Growmark FS up until last April 2024 when I retired from Growmark. And I was responsible for agronomy training, field testing, crop nutrients, and crop protection products in particular. Prior to that, I was with Honeywell's ammonium sulfate marketing group as an agronomist. And previously to that, I was with Prolon Products, Agway's turf group, as their turf fertilizer product manager. And some other prior experience was also with Agway as their fertilizer agronomist. And also a little bit before that, I was fertilizer blend plant manager for 3 years, and do have some additional background with crop consulting, 2 years in Geneva, Illinois at the time with Terraland Corporation. And I was also a cooperative extension agent, ag program leader in central New York in Herkimer County. I've got a BS from Cornell in agronomy and also an MS in plant science with a focus in plant nutrition from University of New Hampshire. I'm active in industry and academic organizations and still am, and a member of the American Society of Agronomy. And I was also relevant here, a member of the Certified Crop Advisor Steering Committee that originally created and developed the CCA program. And I'm currently a member of the PA CCA board. And I grew up in Eastern New York in Cambridge, a small town northeast of Albany.
Woo, what a resume. Wow.
Yeah. Take it away, Lou.
Yeah, my name's Lou. I'm going to work the opposite direction because that's easier for my little mind. My name's Lou Frame. I'm originally from Honeybrook, Pennsylvania, which is in the southeast corner of the state. Basically, an hour in between each way from Lancaster and Philadelphia. I grew up, really developed a passion for agriculture in my teenage years. Graduated high school and then attended Penn State. Majored in plant science with a crop production option, which is an equivalent to like an agronomy degree that you would get at several of the other like land grant state universities. Had an amazing time there, a lot of connections. Started right out of school with an ag retailer in Mifflin County, the Union Mill division of ChemGrow. Got some great experience there with application and sales. Began to move closer to home. Worked for a seed dealership and feed mill in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, Mark Hershey Farms. And then about 6 years ago, I started with Team Ag. Team Ag's located in Ephrata. Originally started doing nutrient management planning, soil conservation planning, odor management planning. They still do some of that. As time went on with Team Ag, they developed a need for another agronomist, as one of the guys that I'm now replacing is moving into retirement. So I am now pretty much full-time doing our independent crop consulting. So we also do engineering, land planning, and all that regulatory planning, organic transition consulting, regenerative ag consulting. We have a lot of different specialists in those specific fields. So I mainly focus on the independent agronomy consulting and work with farmers in Lancaster, Chester, Montgomery counties, York counties, developing crop planning and then executing that through the season with in-season scouting, soil sampling, fertility management, pest management. My wife and I farm also in Chester County, right around Honeybrook. So we now live in the town right next to Honeybrook, so I didn't end up too far from home, and just having a ball every day. So
that's great. So I want to start with the first question, and I want to ask you both, since we're talking specifically about certified crop advisors. Let's start with Dean, and then we'll go to Lou. How long have you been a certified crop advisor, and what made you originally make the choice to say, like, hey, I'm going to sit for this exam and I'm going to get this credential and attach it to my name?
Sure, I'll kick it off here. Since I was on that original steering committee, I felt really strongly compelled and committed to becoming a certified crop advisor myself. So I was one of the first, I think the first round of testing in the state of Pennsylvania, and took the exam in Harrisburg. And so I felt strongly, and I had a great deal of support at the time from Agway and my supervisor at Agway, that CCA program is something that should be created and developed to have qualified people calling and servicing growers.
So I want to just jump into that, and I'm curious because you mentioned you were kind of part of the genesis of this in Pennsylvania. Dean, why was the CCA created in the first place, right? What need did it fill that wasn't being met?
Right. At the time, those of you who were in that era, there was a great deal of, I'll say, consternation and worry and about the potential impact of Chesapeake Bay and nutrient management regulations and the impact that that may have on commercial farmers, agriculture, the ability to write recommendations, and the trying to meet and participate at the table with what appeared to be legislation regarding nutrient management. That was the big mover at the time. And of course, the Agronomy Society being the scientific organization behind academics and also practicing agronomists, knew that having qualified, knowledgeable, multidisciplinary people associated with crop production and recommendations for nutrients and nutrient management was very much needed, and a organization that could support that, such as the Agronomy Society, felt the need there as well. And so the organization just was natural, I think, outgrowth of that concern out there with regard to Chesapeake Bay and nutrient management and the requirements that that may necessitate.
Dean, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but do you remember when that would have been?
Yeah, that would have been the early 90s.
Okay, all right. I was guessing that, but I wanted to see where.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the CCA program was in the early 90s. It took a couple of years for the program to get created. And I think officially the program has now existed for about 30 years or just over 30 years.
Excellent. Lou, how long have you been a CCA, and what kind of made you think this was the right move for you?
Yeah, I originally was exposed to the CCA program when I joined the agronomy club at Penn State. We had the opportunity to go to the American Society of Agronomy's annual conference. That year it was in Minneapolis. So it was a great trip. We got to go. It was just an experience to go, had friends in the agronomy club. This is going to be a great time. We got to that conference and realized some of the depth and a lot of the scientific backing that goes, with the research that's put on by the American Society of Agronomy. So then, it was like, if this is a career I want to pursue, specifically in agronomy, this is something that I wanted to do. So they gave you like a student membership while you're in school, and I knew it was something I wanted to pursue. So again, a lot of this is I'm benefiting from a lot of the work that Dean and his colleagues did to structure the program in a way. And at Penn State, it was always promoted. We'd have people again come to classes, come to the agronomy club, and speak about their CCA certification and the credibility that it can give you within the industry to make recommendations to help gain the trust of farmers and people in the industry. So I always looked at that. I didn't actually get my CCA till I believe 2021, 2022. I started a Team Ag. I actually kind of pursued the certification on my own. I more or less just wanted to have it to have that certification in the event that I would need it, and it all kind of worked out. God worked his magic, and I worked specifically an agronomy role, so I didn't necessarily need it for my nutrient management background, but I thought that it was a good foundation to have. So I took the exams, and there is some experience requirements with the CCA program. So you should have that little bit of work experience before you would go for the full certification. So I kind of had that student, not a certification, but I was recognized, and then I was able to apply and take the exams, and then fill out the application information before receiving my my certification, and then been really happy to have it.
So I think we'll talk about the process and some of those exams in a second here. But before we do that, I kind of want to give our listeners maybe a snapshot of what a typical day might be for someone who has a CCA and is maybe in a traditional agronomist kind of role. So maybe we can start with Lou, since he's currently working with Team Ag, what his daily life looks like, and how the CCA helps him to live that life. And then we'll go to Dean and ask the same thing, maybe of his Growmark experience.
Sure. My day right now, it depends a little bit on the time of the year, that's for sure. So right now, we're doing a lot of in-season scouting. We're spending most of the day out in fields. We're independent crop consultants, so farmers pay us directly for our scouting and soil sampling, fertility management. So this time of the year, we pretty much walk fields every 2 weeks in agronomic crops, look for, nutrient deficiencies, pest problems, and try to execute that plan. In the fall, after crops are getting taken off the fields, we're conducting our soil sampling. And then during the winter, we spend a lot of time, we meet with each individual customer every year, go over crop rotation planning, and then put together a comprehensive crop report for each of their crop groups and fields. That, to me, is one of the biggest benefits of our service, I think. It gives you that really solid foundation. It allows you to pre-purchase a lot of your inputs and really plan out that season, so that when you get because right now we're really in the thick of it with crops. With the spring we have 2 different crops going on. Guys are super busy rushing in between weather windows. So I find a lot of value in our crop management reports, because that allows guys to just get the work done, and they can reference those crop management reports for those recommendations, along with our in-season scouting, to get all those moves executed, to get the best crop that we can on a lot of those fields. So my work looks a little bit different depending on the time of the year. And for me, I love it, because just about the time you're getting tired of it, you're busy, you're tired, you kind of get into the next phase, you get to have some fun. So you cycle through it. So it's certainly not, you do the same thing every day for a period of time, and then you move on to the next thing. I can't get it. I love the farmers I work with. We get along great. And so now, being in my second, third, fourth, fifth year of scouting, some of these guys, you really build a relationship with them. And you also get a little bit of a feel for the farmers' tendencies, because each farm's a little bit different. I'm not going to make the same recommendations on any 2 farms. They're going to structure around what the needs of the farmer are. We have a lot of livestock farmers, dairies in my geography. We also have your cash grain farmers. So their goals are going to be different. So as you go on in time, you learn about their farm, but you also learn a little bit about the farmer themselves, and you can really get a lot of neat things done and help optimize their time and their management based on that. So that's a little bit of what I do day to day.
That's great. Well, it seems like you definitely love what you do. And I think, like you're saying, the value of having that scouting in-season work paired with that winter work, I mean, I'm sure it keeps it interesting and really useful for the farmer. So, Dean, why don't we hear about your experience in Growmark, and did it look very similar to what Lou's talking about, or did you do something a little different?
Right. Good question. My days were generally a little different than Lou, because mine revolved around supporting, this is Growmark in particular, supporting our crop salespeople out there, who are many of them CCAs, throughout the Growmark FS territory, which is New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and a little bit of Virginia. So I was their backstop, essentially, for agronomy tech support. And so I helped them when they ran into an issue that they were not able to resolve. In addition to that, this time of year, I was also involved with my own field evaluation of projects and plots, and setting them up, establishing, just like any other agronomy field plots. So it's balancing those 2 things at this time of year. And So I think a thing that would be similar to things that Lou just described in his experiences, that some of the things that he does during the crop scouting requires some pretty immediate action, perhaps on the part of a grower. Let's say, for example, an infestation of some insect or disease, slugs, for example, that needs some management action. Then you need to get back to that grower, or in my case, to that particular crop specialist or CCA, and with a quick response on what the management recommendation might be, or the alternatives for management. And like Lou explained, it's the job's very cyclical, depending on the time of year, during the growing season or in the off season. So those two aspects of I think his job and his experience and mine are quite similar. You really don't stay in a certain static situation in your job very long, because the growing season changes, the calendar moves on, and then you have other responsibilities that then come up and become a priority.
So interestingly enough, where we sit as extension, you're describing a very similar job than what we have, right? With a little bit of a different flair. But I think one of the things that we need to make kind of clear on this is, like, this certified crop advisor is a part of your job, right? It's not like specific people are out there just as certified crop advisor and that's your job. What we're talking about is some of these people just have such a passion for this that what they're doing is they're taking that next step, right? And they're becoming that person that you can trust and has a code of ethics that's dictated down by this board, and they're pursuing extracurricular and continuing educational activities. That's kind of the point to this, right? Is there can be whole bunches of these people in different fields and different jobs. They can be extension, they can be private sector, they can be university professors, but they are just people that are taking an extra initiative to go out there and continue to train and educate themselves every day, and being good stewards of the land and crop professionals, right?
You said it exactly. Exactly, Justin. A committed professional who is knowledgeable and competent and fully qualified in what they're doing. And that, I think, and you mentioned the word, Justin, a key word: trusted. That is, I think, the ultimate measure with growers, is that a good CCA is very competent and capable in their job, is trusted by the grower.
So I think now we've kind of reached this really good point, and we started to talk about a little bit of this education and this experience and all of these credentials that have to go through there. So, Dean, do you have the ability to kind of walk us through the steps that it takes to get someone to be a certified crop advisor?
Sure. There's 5 steps. First, you need to create an account with the Certified Crop Advisor organization. That website is certifiedcropadvisor.org. And you may put that up at some point here, guys. I'm not sure. But anyhow, the second part is to pass the national exam, or international exam as it's now called, and then the state or regional exam. And those are multidisciplinary exams that are focused in 4 subject matter areas: nutrient management, soils and water, pest management, and crop management. And those 4 areas are competency areas that you must have good understanding, comprehensive understanding, and that's where the qualified and capable comes in. The step 3 is you've got to have experience. And Lou mentioned this earlier. Depending on your education and background, you have to have more or less years of experience in the field. Then you also have to have references who will vouch for you, and then you apply for the credential, and then you send in your overall application as a package. So those are the steps. It does take work, especially to do your study materials on the comprehensive exams, both the international exam and the state exam. But there are study materials for that. And there's also study classes that are sometimes offered depending on the state or region where you reside. But that's overall the steps to certification. So it takes both education and background, and also someone who will vouch for your credibility and capabilities in the way of references.
Yeah, could I just add like two things quick?
Go for it.
Yeah, so I utilize again, like Dean said, Penn State offers a CCA like practice type of curriculum that you can access online. I utilize that when I was getting my certification. It helps narrow down some of the areas that you want to focus on in your studying, and that was very helpful. And another thing, as Dean said, the experience requirements do correlate a little bit with your education, but I just like to add that, you don't need college, you don't need a university education in agronomy. You can get your CCA certification without that. Again, it does require a little bit more experience, but some of the guys that taught me a lot of what I know, especially after school, when I was in the retail space, they were guys that had CCAs. They didn't go to college. They gathered that experience over years of working with farmers, and they hold that code of ethics and things that the CCA program holds true to. And I think that they taught me as much as some of my college courses did. So nothing to discredit a university education, but don't let that be a barrier to gaining your certification if you're trying to pursue that path. Is all I wanted to add.
So maybe on that note, I know something that I sometimes field questions for, or maybe it's a farm kid who just comes out of high school and says, "Well, I had a lot of experiment making decisions around the farm. Shouldn't that be adequate experience?" Well, it seems like there's some structure to what experience counts, what doesn't count, and then what kinds of college experience it count as well. So, could you give us more context for maybe what counts towards experience?
So if you work in an ag specific, so for me, I used a lot of my retail experience, my retail, and again, it wasn't strictly a sales role. There was scouting involved. You do have to detail a little bit approximately basically the percentage of your job that was involved with consulting or assisting with management decisions on farms. So working on a farm, it can be a little bit challenging. I would recommend that, yeah, there's tons of ag service providers all around, anything from like what our company does to what Growmark FS does with where Dean was employed, and a lot of those are great ways to get experience. And then if you look through the CCA application, there's some equations and things to kind of get those equivalent years of experience. So even if your job wasn't 100% scouting and consultation, and it was a portion of it, you can apply a portion of that towards your experience, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a not sounding bad. It's a little bit of a convoluted process to get through deciphering what your experience counts for, because technically they consider if your job responsibility is 30% working with a grower, that's 1 year of experience. But there's a really good guide that's this application and credential information guide. We'll make sure we attach that in the show notes. And if you kind of scroll down through there for a few pages, they have some really nice examples that discuss person is doing this amount of work for this amount of time. How do we translate that into the experience necessary? And it kind of walks you through that application process. So we've stepped through a lot of the day-to-day that you're doing. We've stepped through a lot of the process of how to become a CCA. I want to ask maybe more of a challenging question now. And maybe this is a thinker. I am an extension educator. I have a CCA, and I would bet you 90% of the producers I work with don't know what a CCA is. And I'm sitting here at my computer. I've run through the Find a Professional. I put in 50 miles of my zip code. There's, maybe a dozen CCAs around. What can the CCA board or what can members of this certified crop advisor group do to kind of expand this role and educate producers and educate the farming public of Pennsylvania to say, hey, this is not someone else just trying to sell you something. This is a group of people out here trying to help you. Look for these people with these credentials, right? How do we do better spreading the word about this awesome opportunity and program to get more people involved?
That's a super question.
Good. I hope you've got all the answers.
That's a super question, Justin, and it has been the Achilles heel of the program since its inception, because it takes marketing in order to make that happen, and a marketing message that gets to growers. And I think that kind of takes us into the digression of maybe what's an example of what a CCA can do for you as a farmer. And I think that is providing appropriate, competent management recommendations to a grower that fits their operation and helps them be a productive and profitable ongoing organization and entity. And that process, I think, requires a competent and qualified agronomist who is a CCA. And that multidisciplinary approach that has I guess, substantial requirements behind us assures that that's what's going to be delivered by a certified crop advisor to a grower. But the messaging to a grower is one of the, in my opinion, one of the weaker parts of the program. There are some tools that are helpful, in my estimation, to help get the message to growers that they should be working with a CCA, but it's not done very well or effectively by the program.
That's a good point, and hopefully it's things like this that might help get the word out, and connect the dots for farm operations, because I think a lot of them are working with, or some of them are working with some sort of crop consultant or agronomist, but it's the qualification, right? That's what's the important part of the CCA picture is are you standing on the right kind of ground, and have you anything to show for your qualifications? So and maybe I'll throw this next one to Lou. So we're talking about, maybe as we're moving into this conversation of like what's the value of a CCA to a farmer. I'm curious, the demographic of folks that you usually work with. If I'm a farmer, does it make sense for a larger operation, a smaller operation to hire a consultant? Is it maybe you can give us an example of what a farmer could get out of having a good relationship with their CCA?
Yeah, I'll give you, so the acreage range of the farmers that I work with ranges from 13 acres to 3,700 acres. So I think that would capture a fair amount of the demographic of farmers. The benefits, I'm obviously biased, but the benefits are to an operator of any size. One of the things that I like to stress, especially as we get into an age of information, the information is more accessible than it's ever been as it comes to agronomic information. Anything from soils to pest management, anything's a Google search away. Some of the benefit that I think is that I see is you have local information, hyper local. You have farms that if I'm seeing it in one farm, I'm likely, if there's a certain pest that's beginning to flare up, I'll see it on one farm, and typically that follows on other farms. So we're knowing what to look for. It's not necessarily something that somebody on a Facebook group in Indiana can tell me what a pest infestation is going to do in southeastern Pennsylvania. So having that local expertise is really important. And I always say too, I am not any smarter than any of the farmers I work with. It's a little bit of, I have a little bit more of that time to focus on some of the education. And again, I can offer some of that local. I'm getting out of just the fences of your farm. I get to see a little bit of what works, what doesn't, and then I can help offer some of that. So we work, the other, there's 3 other agronomists that I work with Team Ag. We kind of, you're tapping into that pool of knowledge that, things that you might learn on your farm is going to benefit other farmers, and then things from other people's farms might benefit yours. So I think that's really huge. And like I said, it's getting somebody that isn't just looking at your farm, can give you a little bit of an outside view, possibly a slightly less emotion, as many of the decisions in the farming, anything in farming can be an emotional decision. So it's removing a little bit of that emotion, but still having a lot of understanding of what the particular farmer's needs are. So I see it as a huge benefit. I do my best to I do get asked. So on our crop management reports, we started putting our CCA numbers on the reports just of each of the agronomists to deliver that little bit of accountability. That goes to show that, because we want to be transparent, we want to show that we're keeping up with our certifications and that education portion. Those continuing education credits are huge. There's in-person events, there's online stuff. I don't mean to dive too much into that, but you go to the in-person events for the continuing education credits, and yeah, you get your credits, and the information sessions have an incredible amount of research and information that you can digest. But it's also networking with the other CCAs, a lot of times from your area, maybe a county over, that you get to, again, build that pool of knowledge specific to our area, to those soil types, whatever it might be. And I just find that to be a huge benefit to farmers.
So I think we're kind of moving to a point of close here. I want to throw one last question out, and I think we've talked about this whole concept for 45 minutes. But if you guys just could put a point on a farmer who says, I don't know about this, is it really worth it? How would you respond to that person in their question of saying, I'd have to go in, get on the computer, do a Google search, find a CCA, make an extra phone call? I think we get in this point, and Lou, you were exactly right. Everything's a phone or a Google search, or it's all in our hands, right? They say that we've got more technology now in our hands than they did when they put someone on the moon, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's also this power of being able to, you can validate any argument you want in a tenth of a second, whichever side of that you sit on.
Exactly.
And that's incredibly challenging. What would your thoughts be, and how would you say, is it worth it to work with one of these people?
It's, again, we can back up that we've taken the time to do that extra research. We've taken the time to look at science-based, peer-reviewed research that, again, sometimes can remove a little bit of that emotion, right? Advertising's used in every industry in the world, and it's used a lot in agriculture too. Again, it taps into some of that. It does tap into some of that emotion at times, and there's tons of products that provide tons of benefit. Again, it's finding the right place for that, but it's just that extra fortification of our commitment, because if somebody acts in a way that's out of the code of ethics, you could lose your certification. So you when you get your taxes done, you look for a CPA, or when you get your you you maybe hire a lawyer, you look for that law degree or that bar certification. So ours isn't necessarily, again, required to make those consultations, but I think it is that extra peace of mind, knowing that that you're the advisor because again, a lot of these folks are sales individuals, and they still have a commitment to act in the farmer's best interest. And I think I just think it speaks for itself.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for, right? When you go to the doctor, you want someone to have some credentials at the end of their name. Anyone could call themselves a doctor at a point.
Yeah.
But that DO makes you feel a little bit better when they're, or MD makes you feel a little bit better at times when they're writing you a prescription. This is just one more thing there to make you realize that this person cares about what they're doing and they've gone through some extra training. So thank you. That was what I was looking for.
I'd also
Great.
like to respond to that question, Justin. I think one of the most significant aspects of the program is that multidisciplinary competency. That multidisciplinary aspect is really, really important because it allows you to be competent in the understanding of all of the aspects that are happening out in the field and the science behind them. And that's super important. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, we had a crop complaint with regard to wheat following a herbicide application. And trying to figure out what happened in that herbicide application and why we had a crop response and crop damage associated with it took about 10-day period to resolve. But not until we had this multidisciplinary approach with lots of people involved, including the crop protection chemical company, their tech rep involved, did we figure it out. And I think that situation was a great example to try to ferret out what had happened. And in this particular case, it wasn't the herbicide that was applied that was the problem. It was the unknown herbicide that was applied because that herbicide tank had been contaminated with another herbicide unbeknownst to us. And ultimately, the grower figured out what happened, and we figured out what happened, but it wasn't that herbicide, the primary herbicide that was in that tank, but another herbicide that entered into the tank mix by mistake. So I think that, again, that multidisciplinary approach helped resolve that problem. The grower was satisfied. The grower changed his crop rotation as a consequence of that, and it was able to move on and was just very happy. But the resolution of that situation took that multidisciplinary approach, and we moved past it. And I think is a great example of the value of a competent, qualified, multidisciplinary approach to resolving field problems.
That's a great point and a great real world example of, like, you know, all the things that you need to be aware of, and having kind of worked through some of the study material for the CCA exam, I can vouch for the fact that it is quite comprehensive. You know, there's 5 different categories. They cover a lot of things, and it's a good time to really brush up. You know, if I'm coming from a plant pathology background, you know, focus on maybe soils. You know, I haven't thought that much, right? Really brush up on those pieces that you're missing. And the good news is any CCA has to have these competencies in each area. So they have to be aware of all these things, which is, I think, really valuable.
Just to mention on the continuing education credits too, it's not just you need to get X amount of credits in whatever it would be. You have to match your continuing education credits to those categories. So again, it's keeping those competencies in those each individual areas. You know, I have some that I feel stronger in than others, and it continues to keep me learning, especially in the ones that I might feel that I needed more improvement and education in. So
Yeah, that's a great point that you do have to maintain your credits in each of those categories. So it does help you. It forces you, right? All of us are probably, we're all used to maybe focusing on our strengths and ignoring our weaknesses. Well, this forces you not to have to do that, right?
Right.
So we're all probably guilty of
Yep.
that, We like to focus on our strengths, but it's the value of that certification right there. So do you guys
Yep.
have any last thoughts before we close out?
I think one of the big challenges of the program, and we mentioned it earlier, is the marketing of the certified crop advisor and that credential to farmers, and it's not done well. But in fact, we have an effort this year putting together a session at Keystone Crops and Soils, not Keystone Crops and Soils, but Keystone Farm Show that's in York this year, to have a session geared for farmers at Keystone Farm Show in York in January. And that's going to be sponsored by the PACCA organization. I'm a member of the board, incidentally. And so that's going to be one event that's going to try to reach growers and get them to try to understand and recognize what we're doing here at this in this podcast is what is a CCA and what's the value or the potential value of a CCA to their operation.
I know I already said no more questions on my final question, right? But I can't help myself. It's a problem. Because we do have a lot of listeners in other states and even other countries. This is not just a Pennsylvania thing, right? We've maybe not stressed that as much, but this has more reach than just Pennsylvania.
Yeah, this is an international program, US, Canada, Mexico, and I think other countries in South America.
Yeah, there. So if regardless of where you live, there might be a CCA near you. So
Yeah.
we do have global listeners. So there might be folks in South America, and actually we do get some listeners in South America in all corners of our world. So it's good to know that this is an international program and that they can utilize.
Yeah, there are some 13 to 14,000 CCAs around the world.
Well, awesome. Well, let's continue to spread the word and increase those numbers as we go, right? So Dean and Lou, thank you again for coming on today. For our listeners, thanks for listening through to the end here, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Agronomy Highlights podcast.